And these devastating acts of violence, these heinous acts of violence, were planned carefully using the internet, using surveillance, using his own outfit and body armor. I want to bring in Catherine Christian and Tom Winter back with me.
Señores, lo que acaba de pasar en Minnesota es una verdadera tragedia. Un hombre llamado Vance Walter fue arrestado luego de haber intentado asesinar a 2 legisladores demócratas, dejando un saldo de 2 personas muertas y otras 2 heridas. Mientras el estado entero intenta procesar lo ocurrido, el gobernador Tim Walz ha dado una conferencia de prensa donde ha explicado cómo es que se logró capturar a este sospechoso. Pero como si el horror del ataque no fuese lo suficiente, ahora también nos enteramos de algo que es sinceramente repugnante. Y es que, al parecer, ante todo esto, Donald Trump se ha negado a llamar al gobernador Walz y en su lugar lo que hizo fue atacarlo públicamente, justo en medio de toda esta tragedia. Sean bienvenidos a Políticamente en Desacuerdo. Señores, hoy veremos cómo capturan a este tirador mientras Trump se lanza contra Tim Walz. Así que los invito a que se queden hasta el final de este video porque veremos todos los detalles más interesantes. Pues bueno, señores, vamos a hablar de todo esto, pero primero empecemos con lo que dijo el gobernador Tim Walz. Escuchen.
Good evening. After a 2-day manhunt, 2 sleepless nights, law enforcement have apprehended Vance Walter. That's 48 hours that law enforcement involved in a complex and dangerous manhunt. Spent Father's Day away from their families to deliver justice for Melissa and Mark Hortman and their children who spent this Father's Day alone. To the law enforcement who stand here and the hundreds who were involved in this, the state of Minnesota owes you a deep debt of gratitude. Thank you. You ran towards the danger and you served the state of Minnesota. This is a great example of coordination and collaboration. Multiple agencies, federal, state, and local, coordinating together in a way to protect the public and close this hunt around. Multiple agencies were there as FBI laid hands on it and Minnesota State Patrol put the handcuffs on. One man's unthinkable actions have altered the state of Minnesota. Melissa Hortman was the core of who our values were. She had a hand in so many things that happened. The building that we stand in, she helped usher through so that we could respond from the State Emergency Operations Center with the professionalism and giving the tools necessary to law enforcement to do their job. To Melissa and Mark's family, I cannot fathom your pain and the grief that you're going through. We'll take solace in the memory and the work that Melissa did, and you can rest assured that we will put every ounce of effort that the state of Minnesota has to make sure that justice is served and the individual responsible for this serves the time for the unspeakable act. State grieves with you. To John and Yvette Hoffman, the latest news is Senator Hoffman came out of his final surgery and is moving towards recovery. Yvette is healing. And I think when the story comes out, and I'd like to say on behalf of the state of Minnesota, the heroic actions by the Hoffman family and their daughter Hope saved countless lives, and we are grateful. Bureau of Criminal Apprehension will continue to investigate. We will keep you informed. We'll spare no expense and no work to make sure that that happens. A moment in this country where we watched violence erupt. This cannot be the norm. It cannot be the way that we deal with our political differences. Now's the time for us to recommit to the core values of this country. And each and every one of us can do it. Talk to a neighbor rather than arguing. Debate an issue. Shake hands. Find common ground. This is who Melissa Hortman was. In the first negotiating session that I had a chance to work with her, she got all the partners in the room, and she provided each and every one of us a copy of a book called Getting to Yes. And the whole premise was debating with a sense of goodwill, a sense of trying to come to compromises that serve everyone. And because of her, we did that. Because of her, we did that year after year after year. That's the embodiment of how things are supposed to work. It's not about hatred. It's not about mean tweets. It's not about demeaning someone. It's leading with grace and compassion and vision and compromise and decency. That was taken from us in Minnesota with the murder of Speaker Hortman. So for each and every one of us to truly honor, and we will continue to honor that spirit, but we will need to do it in just more than actions in a memorial. Conducting ourselves in the spirit that Melissa Hortman did her work is what the country needs to heal. I will once again say the deep debt of gratitude. These professionals standing behind us and countless others. This was, you'll hear from them, incredibly complex. And to take this suspect in with no life of life or injuries to civilian population and to bring him in alive so he can serve justice, which he will do in Minnesota, is an incredible thing that we are grateful for.
Miren, señores, yo lo digo sin rodeos. Me quito el sombrero ante Tim Walz. Una reacción humana, empática, absolutamente necesaria en un momento como este. Porque él no solo pidió justicia, sino que también hizo un llamado muy claro a detener la violencia política que está consumiendo a Estados Unidos. El fiscal federal interino de Minnesota también anunció cargos federales contra este sospechoso. Y amigos, revelaron detalles muy, pero muy escalofriantes sobre cómo este sospechoso visitó 4 viviendas en la noche del ataque. Miren esto.
In chilling detail, we have learned from Minnesota investigators what happened in what they have called a murderous rampage and political assassination. The outline of 20 pages detailing what they say the suspect did, how he went not to 1, 2, 3, but 4, at least 4 separate houses of state representatives in Minnesota, killing 2 people, seriously injuring 2 more who miraculously survived an onslaught of bullets. He had stalked his victims like prey, is the way officials put it, shot them in cold blood. And these devastating acts of violence, these heinous acts of violence were planned carefully using the internet, using surveillance, using his own outfit and body armor. I want to bring in Catherine Christian and Tom Winter back with me. Tom, you and I have listened to a lot of press conferences together. This was extremely pointed, extremely detailed, and I want to play just a little bit of just how carefully police say, investigators say, the suspect planned all of this.
Belter planned his attack carefully. He researched his victims and their families. He used the internet and other tools to find their addresses and names, the names of their family members. He conducted surveillance of their homes and took notes about the location of their homes. He also prepared in other ways. He concealed himself as a police officer, outfitting his black SUV with police lights and a police license plate, wearing a black tactical vest and body armor, carrying a police flashlight and a handgun. And of course he wore that hyper-realistic silicone mask as seen on the surveillance videos.
He goes to their doors, those who answered. He presents himself as a police officer and then in one case as a robber, now potentially facing formal first-degree murder charges, which would include a death penalty option. Your big takeaways, Tom, from this press conference?
Yeah, I think objectively, as bad as this is, the fact that it could have been a whole lot worse. I mean, you have 2 houses that he went to. In one instance, the person wasn't home. Again, another lawmaker. In the second instance, police arrive there and not sure what he's about. He then leaves and goes to the 4th home where he's involved in the second shooting. So this could have been a lot worse. I think the idea that law enforcement in the middle of the night thought to pick up the phone or pick up the radio and start sending out units to various state lawmakers shows a level of proactive law enforcement that is really astounding to look at.
Extraordinary and life-saving.
100% life-saving, and I think speaks to the fact that law enforcement agencies from their most local level to the top of the FBI or top of the state police or the NYPD, the biggest law enforcement agencies in this country, are now acutely aware of the threat of political violence. And they took it so seriously, and that it unquestionably saved lives based on the account that we have from the allegations and the criminal complaint. Speaking to that, on the charges, 2 counts of stalking. When you use a cell phone or the internet to look somebody up, you're going across state lines, and that's the charge that they have here. So just by the fact that he was looking up and stalking online these individuals and then committed a crime after that, those are the first 2 counts. Counts 3 and 4 have to do with the murder of Hortman, and that's using a firearm in a violation of a federal statute. That is a life imprisonment is the maximum sentence there. That is a death penalty eligible charge. There's also charges, the shooting of the Hoffmans using a firearm. The detail that he knocked on the door, he's got the lights flashing, he's wearing the silicone mask, now confirmed that he was wearing a mask. He's got the police flashlight there. You're looking at the image right there, very clear. And then when they challenge him, at the Hortman residence with, you're not a police officer. What is this all about? He says, well, this is a robbery. They try to hold him back, and then he fires his weapon and is involved in the 2 homicides there. The daughter calling 911 in incredibly chilling detail that we received from the U.S. attorney. In this case, Joseph Thompson, the acting U.S. attorney. A couple other notes from this. This is the largest field office, FBI field office in the country by geographic size. Alvin Winston, who runs that office, saying that this was the largest manhunt in Minnesota history, talking about how everyone came together there. I know Catherine.
Y es que no es casualidad. Esta violencia, amigos, tiene raíz en una corriente de la derecha extremista. Es la realidad. Se han dedicado a deshumanizar a sus oponentes, a tratarlos como los enemigos del país, a sembrar el odio desde los más altos niveles. ¿Quién es el principal promotor de todo esto? Donald Trump. O sea, mientras Minnesota lloraba la pérdida de vidas inocentes y políticas encima, ¿qué es lo que hacía Trump? Rachel Scott, que es periodista del ABC, reportó que Trump no solo no llamó al gobernador, sino que publicó que es un incompetente. Así tal cual, amigos. O sea, mientras un amigo cercano de Tim Walz acababa de fallecer, Donald Trump decidió atacarlo. Yo creo que esto ya no es política. Esto es crueldad dura y pura. Y lo más alarmante es que mientras todo esto sucede, los seguidores del MAGA ya están comenzando a inventarse teorías de conspiración. O sea, una locura. Un senador incluso dijo que todo esto fue culpa de los marxistas de izquierda. Pero claro, para ellos eso está bien. Para ellos eso es libertad de expresión. Pero si el senador Alex Padilla le hace una pregunta incómoda a Kristi Noem en público en una conferencia, ahí sí se ofenden. Porque, señores, así opera esta gente. Censuran lo que les incomoda. Normalizan la violencia verbal y física, si es que se viene de su lado.
Talk about his politics a little bit. I know that you had some discussions. I just wanted to talk.
Well, everyone's calling him a Democrat. He's not a Democrat. He would be offended if people called him a Democrat. He, because of this board thing he was on for Governor Walz, it wasn't to serve. He was just serving the community. But I can't believe a political issue would cause him to do such a.
Y es que cómo no hablar de política cuando ves que hay funcionarios que tienen el miedo de hablar por temor a represalias. La senadora Lisa Murkowski, por ejemplo, admitió que a veces vota alineada a Trump simplemente por miedo. ¿Se pueden dar cuenta de lo grave que es esto? O sea, tenemos representantes que ya no deciden en base a principios o lo que es mejor para los ciudadanos, sino que lo hacen por miedo a su propio partido. Y eso es algo que debería dar alarmar. Ojo, no lo digo por capricho, ¿no? Ni por sacar rédito político. Lo digo porque el odio y la desinformación es lo que está matando a personas. Hay gente que cree que los problemas del país son culpa de ayudas humanitarias que valen menos de un centavo, que no pueden pagar sus cuentas médicas o que la comida está cara porque se mandan alimentos a niños que mueren de hambre en otros países. Y eso no solo es falso, eso es inhumano. Lo peor es que son mentiras que muchos escuchan de figuras como, por ejemplo, Elon Musk, que utilizan sus plataformas para alimentar este tipo de fantasías, que eventualmente le cuestan vidas a personas inocentes. Miren, si decir todo esto es politizar una tragedia para ustedes, pues lo siento. Lo siento si es que esperaban que alguien se quede callado, ¿no? O que diga, mejor esperemos a ver qué pasa. No, amigos, porque si no se dice nada, lo único que se hace es abrir la puerta a un próximo ataque. No es violencia espontánea, es el resultado de años de discurso que despoja a las personas de su humanidad. Pues bueno, señores, pasemos a hablar del siguiente tema. Y es que gastar 60 millones de dólares en un desfile militar solo para celebrar el cumpleaños de un presidente. No sucedió en Corea del Norte, pasó en Estados Unidos, y todo esto bajo el mandato de Trump. Lo peor no solo es el gasto, ¿no? Lo peor es el mensaje que eso transmite. Porque cuando un presidente se obsesiona con tanques, tropas y aplausos, ya deja de actuar como un líder democrático. Empieza a parecerse más a un dictador de opereta. Veamos de qué se trata.
Millions of Americans took to the streets over the weekend to protest the actions of the Trump administration, which came as the president held a military parade in Washington, D.C. NBC News Chief Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles has more.
From Los Angeles to Atlanta to Chicago and in the nation's capital, organizers say more than 5 million Americans poured into the streets under the banner of No Kings, with the goal of sending President Donald Trump a message about the direction of his administration.
I didn't expect to be fighting fascism in my 50s.
The protests were in part a response to the administration's decision to host a grand military parade in Washington in honor of the Army's 250th birthday, which just happened to coincide with President Trump's birthday. Trump telling the crowd the day was about America's fighting force.
Every other country celebrates their victories. It's about time America did too.
The parade crowds were moderate amid intermittent rain and intense security all around the route, with those there calling the event a success.
It's patriotic. It's amazing.
But that celebration was juxtaposed by a mass mobilization in other parts of the country.
We just feel like that our democracy is in danger.
Protesters in thousands of demonstrations nationwide accusing President Trump of attempting to amass too much power and targeting innocent people in the administration's sweeping mass deportation program.
Well, we haven't had a king since 1776. We want to keep it that way.
Though largely peaceful, police say one person died when gunfire erupted at a protest in Salt Lake City, while in some others, demonstrators clashed with law enforcement. More than 30 were arrested in Denver. And in Los Angeles, after days of tension and conflict, police accusing protesters of throwing rocks, bottles, and fireworks at officers. The city's downtown area remains under an 8 p.m. curfew as police attempt to keep the peace.
NBC's Ryan Nobles with that report. And joining us now, Democratic Senator Tammy Duckworth of Illinois. She's a member of the Senate Armed Services and Foreign Relations Committees and is also an Iraq War veteran and recipient of the Purple Heart. Senator, thank you so much for being here this morning. The vast majority of these No Kings protests were very peaceful, and the crowds were huge. White House officials tell me that the crowd at the military parade, not what they had hoped, certainly smaller than expected. What are your thoughts as a veteran about that spectacle we saw this weekend, about the military, the Army being honored for its 250th birthday, but also falling on President Trump's birthday?
Yeah, this was not about the Army's 250th birthday. If you wanted to celebrate the Army's 250th birthday and spend $60 million, you could have spent it on tuition for our troops, funding for military families. You could feed all the homeless veterans in this country. So if you truly wanted to celebrate the Army's 250th birthday, then spend the money the correct way, not with a parade for a tin-pot dictator wannabe, which is what Donald Trump is. I felt that it was obscene to have done that at a time when we're trying to cut funding for VA, when we're firing people from their jobs in federal government, and frankly, we're the greatest military on the face of the earth. We don't need a parade to prove it.
And others pointed out the juxtaposition of the parade with ongoing conflicts around the globe. And let's turn to the Middle East. You, of course, served in Iraq. What is your assessment, what you've seen so far in this is the Israel's attack on Iran? Iran has hit back a little bit. We've seen some of their rockets landed. Do you sort of support what you're seeing here from Prime Minister Netanyahu in this attack?
Well, let's start off by the fact that I support Israel's right to defend herself. Israel is in a very, very scary neighborhood, and Israel is our only true, real ally in the Middle East. That said, we got here because Donald Trump pulled us out of the Iran nuclear deal, allowed Iran to continue to work towards refining more uranium, grow their nuclear program. So it's not surprising that Israel would hit back. That said, we need to urge both sides to work towards peace. We do not need the Middle East to flare up into another full-blown conflict. I think that Iran probably underestimated what was going to happen. It seems like Israel has decapitated much of their leadership, especially when it comes to the nuclear development program. But, you know, Donald Trump is supposed to be a deal maker, right? And yet he couldn't bring both sides to the table and prevent this from happening.
Yeah, he's still pushing for those talks. I want to get your opinion on what we talked about last segment with former General McCaffrey, ex-CIA analyst, about the idea that probably the U.S. would have to assist with a B-52 and these bunker-busting bombs if Israel was to really go after the deepest Iranian nuclear facility. Would you be in favor of that move?
I have to see what the conditions are. I don't usually commit to a vote beforehand. I would like to see what it is. I have always supported packages to help Israel, especially those defensive packages. I worry about getting the United States embroiled in yet another Middle East conflict that can last 10, 20 years. Look at what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan. But I stand by our ally Israel because they are the true allies that we have. They provide us with intelligence. They have been there for the United States. I happen to think Netanyahu is a war criminal. I don't trust him. And this is where if we had somebody who was competent in the White House, somebody who's competent in the Department of Defense, somebody who's competent at actually negotiating deals, I would have more confidence. But right now, I don't have a lot of trust in the White House and its ability to actually bring this to a resolution.
Let's quickly hit a couple matters here at home. Over the weekend, last night, President Trump on Truth Social doubled down on ICE raids. We saw in Los Angeles. He says he wants to expand that to a variety of blue cities, name-checking one in your home state, Chicago.
Yeah. Well, because he's using these for his political expediency, right? He's doing this. He's ginning up the unrest. He is separating American-born children from their families. I'm all for deporting violent criminals. Let's deport the felons. Let's deport the violent criminals. But that's not what he's doing. He's actually doing political theater in order to come up with a pretext in which he can send in the National Guard, so he can send in the United States Marines. We just had to evacuate our embassy in Iraq. That's where the Marines should be, protecting Americans abroad. They shouldn't be on the streets of our country turning their weapons on fellow Americans. It is completely un-American, but this is all Donald Trump's doing.
And Senator, in our final 30 seconds here, we obviously, this terrible incident in Minnesota, 2 state lawmakers shot, 1 killed. Just your concerns about the rise in political violence that we're seeing across the country.
It's not acceptable. The rise in political violence is not acceptable. When I was elected, some people voted for me, some people did not vote for me, but I represent everybody in the state of Illinois. We should be working to bring down the level of rhetoric, the level of targeting of one another, and that starts with every one of us that's elected. But it also starts at the White House. The president can't go out there and make the statements he is. Some of my colleagues are making some pretty questionable statements on social media. That has no place in...
Ok, amigos, vamos a poner las cartas sobre la mesa. Ese desfile no fue un homenaje al ejército, fue un espectáculo egocéntrico solo para alimentar el ego de Trump. ¿Cómo lo sabemos? Porque coincidía casualmente con su cumpleaños, porque se gastaron $60 millones en un show innecesario, porque los mismos veteranos lo están diciendo. La senadora Tammy Duckworth, veterana de Irak, condecorada con el corazón púrpura, fue muy clara. Eso no fue una celebración patriótica. Fue un circo montado para un aspirante a dictador. Y tiene mucha razón. ¿Quieren honrar a los soldados? Bueno, usen esos millones para pagarles estudios, darles vivienda, alimentar a los miles de veteranos sin techo. Pero claro, como eso no da likes, como eso no da aplausos, lo que sí da es un desfile con banderas y tanques. Además, amigos, mientras Trump jugaba a los soldaditos, millones de estadounidenses salieron a protestar en todo el país. La consigna: no queremos un rey. Porque, amigos, lo que se respiraba ese día no era orgullo patriótico, era el miedo a que la democracia se esté desmoronando. Y si eso no fuera lo suficiente, el mismo fin de semana, Trump estaba redoblando su campaña de redadas con agentes del ICE, usando fuerzas del orden para fines políticos. Lo dijeron claro, lo que está haciendo es teatro político, solo para justificar el uso de la Guardia Nacional, y hasta de los marines. ¿Desde cuándo se utilizan tropas militares contra los propios ciudadanos? Amigos, todo esto se da en un contexto donde además hay amenazas de violencia política, legisladores asesinados, un clima cada vez más tenso, y Trump, en lugar de calmar las aguas como un buen presidente, las agita. Sé que algunos dirán, otros países también hacen desfiles militares, y es cierto, pero hay una gran diferencia entre celebrar una victoria histórica o montar un espectáculo personalista solo para reforzar tu imagen de macho autoritario. Una cosa es honrar a tu ejército, otra muy distinta es usarlo como un decorado en tu fantasía de poder. Pues bueno, señores, ¿qué opinan ustedes? ¿Creen que este tipo de actos son peligrosos para la democracia? ¿O piensan que son parte del juego político? Los invito a que me dejen sus opiniones en la caja de comentarios. Como siempre, muchísimas gracias por acompañarme hasta el final. Recuerda dar like, comparte este contenido y suscríbete a nuestro canal Políticamente en Desacuerdo. Nos vemos en el próximo video. Hasta luego.